Hey everyone, welcome back. So this month I took part in the VGen June drawing challenge. And the theme was horses. It sounds simple on paper until you actually sit down and try to draw one. Well, horses. Horses are genuinely one of the hardest animals to get right. And I learned that pretty quickly. In this video, I'm going to walk you through my full process from first brush stroke to the final piece. What worked, what didn't, and the decisions I made along the way. This one will end up being one of my favorites I've done in a while, even though I was taken out of my comfort zone. But it was a nice experience. So let's get into it. So before I even open my canvas, I go straight to references. Well, it's pretty hard to find what you're looking for, but if you have a theme like I had, it made it really easy and narrowed what I wanted to just horses and people riding them, because there's something called reference hell where you scroll and scroll and scroll. I've not even started yet. So for this piece, I knew I didn't just want to draw a horse. I wanted to draw a scene, something with an atmosphere and a story. So the concept I landed on was a warrior riding through a misty, almost like a dreamy sky. Well, which in my mind made it very cinematic and in a form of expressing a form of freedom. So I started pulling references in two rounds. The first round was purely for horse anatomy, poses, proportions, how the legs move, how the body sits when it's in motion. And the second part came later, which was for the human riding the horse. Right. So the way I start almost every piece is to block in using a square brush. No pressure, no detail, just broad shapes to lock in the composition and the pulse. The square brush is great for this because it forces you to think of the big shapes rather than getting lost in details too early. You are basically sculpting the silhouette. I knew I wanted a horse in a dynamic and mid gallop pose, something with energy and flow. So I just kept pushing the shape around until the pose felt right for me. Once I had something I was happy with, I dropped the, the block in a layer down to a lower opacity and used it as a guide to start a proper sketch on top. That's the part people sometimes skip. sometimes skip, and honestly, it shows, well, it doesn't show in every piece, but it helps you set a good foundation. So the block in is the foundation. If that's wrong, everything built on top of it is going to be wrong and you'll be fighting. So I drew the horse first, fully committed to getting it right before I added anything else. And then this is where round two of the reference came in. Once the horse was sketched out, I went and looked specifically for references of a person riding a horse, because the relationship between the rider and the horse is its own entire thing. You can't just plug a character on top of it and hope it works. I did the same reference and sketch process for the background as well. Loose shapes, just as I knew what I wanted earlier, so I just went with it. I knew what I wanted the background to look like. To look like. So I went for a subtle and half hidden, like they did, like they were dissolving into a mist somehow, and when very loose with the details there. Then later I added a flat color. Once the sketch was solid, I moved into flat colors, no shading. Well, a little bit of shading at some point, but those were just ambient inclusion shading. This is honestly one of the favorite stages because you start to see the piece actually come together with color. My goal for this piece was a specific quality. I called it whitewashed in a way, like a Japanese themed old painting. And that was the goal of the piece. So after getting the flat colors in, I went into the details, kept refining, adding more shadows, cleaning stuff I didn't like, mostly trial and error to see what will work. Kept on repeating the process till the end. So I'll just keep quiet and you can enjoy the rendering process. Well, I'll recommend it if you take part in the next VGen challenge. Having a prompt forces you out of your comfort zone, and it's really nice and a good way to learn art, while it's also seeing others create and learning from others. If you want to see more breakdowns like this, subscribe and drop a comment letting me know what kind of piece you would want to see next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.